So, I just got the meeting with a friend of mine and her two daughters. They're adults in their 30s. My friend's a little bit older than me. And they recently lost their lawyer on a contingency case, wrongful death case. And they lost their attorney after an offer for settlement was rejected. This is the second time I've had a friend of mine in a situation like that. The first time it was a case of a kid who was hit by a car, and the offer was made. They turned it down, and they ended up getting nothing. So I feel really bad because I think a lot of, when you lose somebody that you love, especially if you feel like someone was negligent or even malicious in whatever they did to cause the loss of your loved one, it's hard for any amount of money to seem like enough. And so I think lawyers, a contingency lawyer, they get paid when you get paid. And so when they're working on the case, a lot of times they're putting out their own money to prosecute the case. And not all attorneys are the best negotiators, but they do generally have a good sense of what kind of settlement is a reasonable compromise. And settlements are compromise. So make sure you understand that settlements are compromise. They're not, you don't get everything that you want in a compromise. Most of the time, if a lawyer withdraws because their client's turning down a settlement, that means that they believe that the case is, if they go to trial, they're going to spend more money going to trial than they're actually going to get. And thus, they will never get paid for the work that they did. So the longer the case goes on, they have to be increasing the value of the case during that time. Otherwise, eventually they're going to have to take a settlement. Otherwise, it's just too costly. And we need contingency attorneys because without attorneys that work on contingency, there are many, many types of cases that you would never be able to bring. And I'm a big critic of attorneys. I don't always like the way that they do business, but contingency attorneys are probably the most trusted attorneys because, again, they don't get paid unless you get paid. I hear some crazy things from people who are suspicious of their attorney, and I just have to tell them, remember, a contingency attorney doesn't get paid unless you get paid. The more you get, the more they get. So, the suspicions are not, well, I don't know what they're based on, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, so I see many cases like that. And for those people out there, if you have an attorney that's getting ready to quit, because in a contingency case where they don't get paid till you get paid, these are usually personal injury cases, wrongful death cases, maybe sometimes it might be medical, or different things like that. If they're going to quit, that means that they've come to the realization that they need to cut their losses because they're never going to get paid. And if one attorney cuts their losses, you're not going to find another one, because no matter how well you try to sell your case to the new contingency attorney, they're always going to value the opinion of the attorney who quit over yours. Now, I'm just dropping facts and realities of life, people, so don't shoot the messenger. This is the truth, and that's how it is. So usually if you turn down a settlement offer and then the attorney doesn't ever get paid, and you normally don't ever get anything either. So what to do? A lot of attorneys are not the greatest at explaining things to people in lay terms. Sometimes I'll hear people say that they turned down a settlement offer, and I'm like, well, how much was it? And they'll say, oh, well, it was, $100,000. And I'll be like, for what kind of case again? What was the damages? And I hear them out, and I'm like, well, that sounds reasonable under the law to me. And sometimes they'll be mad at me, actually. Sometimes they'll be mad. But the law sometimes says, you're only entitled to compensatory damages, which means that compensation for the loss, that you can't compensate for the loss of a person that you love in your life. You can't compensate for, losing your spouse, losing your mom, losing your dad, losing your child. You can't pay someone enough money for that. And because of that, maybe that's the reason why the law has limited it the way it has. I don't want to get into that, but here's what I do want to say. If you're someone and you have that kind of case, try to negotiate that out with your lawyer. Try to understand why they think that's the most that you can get, and maybe even have your lawyer call me. 5%, I'll work with your lawyer to try to interpret what they're saying. But I now I have several people that I've met, they ended up getting nothing. And I may feel like, 50, 100,000, especially if you have multiple plaintiffs, because sometimes, someone will pass in some kind of an accident and there's, a parent, 2 children, or, a widow or widower and 2 kids. So you've got 3 plaintiffs. $100,000 after an attorney takes 30 or 40%, usually closer to 40 with expenses. $100,000 is now $60,000. And the $60,000 has to be spread 3 ways, so $20,000 each. And people feel insulted, I understand that. But the alternative could be nothing. So this message is for anybody who's in that situation. It's for anybody who's representing somebody in that situation. For the attorneys out there, maybe you need someone to help you explain it better. I speak people. I don't know if that means anything, but I know how to speak people, and I know how to translate from legal to people. So maybe I can help. And if you're a person out there and you're insulted by your attorney's offer and you're sitting there waiting for that motion to withdraw as counsel, motion to be relieved as counsel, you're waiting for that to be heard, maybe there's still a chance that you can get a settlement before it's all over and before it's too late. So that's what I hope. Don't let your contingency attorney just walk away without really doing your investigation, really doing your homework, and seeing whether or not this is a settlement. And what's my interest in this? Okay, people always want to know. If it's not that easy to find an attorney sometimes to take on a case, especially if it's not a real large case. The more that attorneys who work on contingency don't get paid anything for cases where they took it knowing that they should get paid, because getting to a settlement offer is a positive thing, there's going to be fewer and fewer attorneys to do that kind of work. And then there will be so many more people who cannot pursue their claims because attorneys just don't want to take the risk. Because when they've done all they can in a case, and I'm not defending attorneys or anything like that, but I'm just saying this is how the system works, and anybody's welcome to go out there and change the system if they don't like how it works. But this is how it's set up right now. And you don't want attorneys to start turning down cases just because it's not even worth the trouble. It's not worth the trouble. This one's too small. You don't want them to have to start picking and choosing like that. So think about that. If you have a contingency case and you're an attorney, you can reach out to me. My contact information is below. And let's see what happens.